Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, we're going to be talking about the whole Logan Paul incident. This has been floating around YouTube a while. There's other things that we could talk about, but not anything that I really have a concrete idea of what I want to say yet. Claudia's pregnant, and that's news, but, we're at about the same stage that we were at when we lost the baby the first time, so we're still kind of, I think 12 weeks is about when that probability of losing the baby drops off, and, we'll have more stuff going on. We've talked with her, we've told her family, we've told my family, we've done this, we've done that, but maybe as we go along, I'll have more kind of to tell as a story that's different from last time. Of course, I hope that the story is much different than last time, as last time was a miscarriage. But, yes, we got that. The J cartoons are done. We finished up J cartoons. The reason for that was because I noticed that on Newgrounds, although not 100% true, generally from year to year, you would see that I was doing different kinds of content every single year, like I was just trying different things. And so I thought that I was actually running out of J comics that were easy to convert into cartoons, and was starting to just like make up some original stuff as we were going along towards the end there. And I thought maybe it was time to go ahead and wrap up the stick figures, and we'll move on to something a little bit more advanced. A part of me wants to just work really hard on making some good quality shorts, and hope that they catch on and do well. Trying to do things on a weekly basis. I am, I don't know. I don't feel like it's not a really good way to make high production material. It's very fast and it's very rough, but There's a rule in media, and you can't really break the rule. It's either fast, cheap, or good, and you pick two. And I really want good to be one of the factors that we pick. So yes. Anyway, so on that note of the fast, good, and cheap, the Logan Paul incident. I'm definitely late to the party talking about this, and this is kind of by intent. I really didn't want to weigh in on it or get involved when it was at the peak of its controversy. I don't really feel like I'm wading in. I don't like to feel like I'm wading into this sort of thing. A lot of people descended on it right away because it was a great topic to boost up your channel and to get people to like click on your links because you get recommended next to other people who are talking about Logan Paul. And it really just kind of illustrated the problem with YouTube and the reason why we had the Logan Paul incident in the first place. The number one thing being that, fundamentally speaking, the way that YouTube works is at this point, I am 100% convinced that YouTube is not a media company and that the people who run YouTube do not understand media. They don't know how it works. They don't know how people make film or cartoons or any kind of entertainment. They just don't get it, and they're a tech company. And I think that what YouTube is hoping is that by using technology, they can create an entirely new paradigm of entertainment that works for them. Like they'll just change the fundamental rules about the way we make entertainment. Like we can do Let's Plays now. No one would have thought to do that before. And it doesn't work really all that well anywhere but YouTube. But YouTube will make Let's Plays be a thing. Toy unboxing. No one would pay to see a child unbox a toy, but YouTube pays a child like $10 million a year to open toys. Nowhere else in the world could you get toy unboxing as a thing. And so YouTube, they're kind of like creating these new types of entertainment. And in a way, I think that maybe YouTube is very excited because they feel like they're doing this and they feel like they're revolutionizing entertainment. But in the long run, I don't feel like they're not really on to anything. They just have a very large built-in audience, and they're just moving traffic to these really poor videos. And over time, they're really going to keep having these advertiser blowouts. I talked about this before this Logan Paul thing was happening. I've been saying, we're going to keep seeing problems on YouTube. Like, things are not in a good place. And so if you're not familiar with the Logan Paul incident, what happened was Logan Paul flew out to Japan, and then he went out to this forest that was very well known. It was known as a place where people go to take their own lives. And so he goes off in the woods, and sure enough, he finds a body, a corpse, and he films himself with the corpse. And people are at they have varying stages of disgust with regards to this thing. They're all like, oh, he was laughing at the body and whatever. And it's like, well, he had that's a normal nervous response, is to laugh and titter and make stupid jokes in a really kind of scary situation. All that, it is just what it is. It's kind of human nature. And it's human nature at its worst, but that's just sort of what it is. And this is the problem that we have with YouTube right now, is that YouTube, again, like I say, it's a tech company, and it thinks it's revolutionizing everything, but what it's actually doing is it's just kind of bringing the nature of a pre-existing system kind of to its worst point. So why is it that we had Logan Paul's suicide video? Why is Logan Paul so big? Why is it that the suicide video thing got big? Why is it that his apology was trending, so on and so forth? Well, there's a lot of things about the way that the system works that sets this up. And the first big thing is that, again, we come back to this creative triangle, which I've talked about before. You get fast, good, or cheap, and you pick two. And because YouTube wants everyone to be producing as much content as possible, as quickly as possible, they've chosen fast and cheap, so you don't really get good. And if you look traditionally at how media has handled a paradigm like that, we get things like reality television. You see, like reality television, when we had the writers' strike and there were some limited resources going into shows, TV started doing just reality TV all the time. It was like, oh, you know, all these things. And it was just like drama, just tons and tons of manufactured drama. None of it was real. All of it was kind of stupid. All of it was sort of brainless. And for a little while, this worked really well for TV networks. Just like for a little while, this has worked really well for YouTube. The reason it worked really well was because television already had a very large built-in audience, and when they switched over to this system of like really cheap, really fast stuff that didn't take much effort to make, they were spending very little and still making a lot of money, so the margins on reality TV were really good. And people would kind of watch it, and for a while they were kind of, it was a novel concept, so they would check it out, because, you know, TV had never been this stupid before. But gradually, though, as people started to get really sick of reality TV, because it just had no substance, it had nothing to draw you in, networks kind of had to get away from it. Because people were no longer tuning in to see, like, I mean, there were still people who would watch it, but the overall numbers of people who were, you know, checking out Tila Tequila or, you know, like whatever the newest iteration of The Bachelor or whatever, the number of people who really cared about that stuff was dropping off. Because it's just the same thing over and over again. It's the same kind of dull manufactured drama that you just see on every single channel, on every single television network. There's nothing special about it. You don't care. And so where we're at with YouTube right now is you notice that a lot of the top YouTubers, there are some exceptions, but a lot of the top YouTubers, they're not actually talented people. Or if they have talents, you know, they're maybe not very meaningful talents. You know, a lot of them, what happens is when they get to be successful enough, like they maybe start off and they're kind of aspiring to be some sort of a talent. And, you know, they may not be very good. They're very mediocre, maybe not really able to climb to the top in the traditional industry. But when you're not good, you can work really fast. I mean, like, this is a thing that we kind of got into. Pederup and I always used to talk about this. Is like back when Pederup was still honing his skill, he could produce Rainbow Dash Presents a lot faster. You know, he could kind of draw fewer images, but it was all like a lot sloppier. And then as he got better and better and better, it got to the point where he couldn't excuse himself to make a worse product, and it was taking forever just to do like a single scene. And so the better you get at something, the longer it takes to produce it. And so by nature, you get people who are like, let's say they want to be rappers or musicians or whatever, and they're not very good, which means that they don't have a lot of refinement. They don't spend a lot of time working on the craft before they release a product, you know. So they release kind of a lot of stuff, and it's all fairly mediocre. And so YouTube kind of boosts it up because there's just a ton of it coming out pretty quickly. And it's a sort of entertainment, just not very good entertainment, because again, you know, fast, cheap are good, and then get fast and cheap. And so then they rise up to the top, and they get all these things. But then once they're at the top, they're making a lot of money, and they can hire, say, like a ghostwriter to do their rapping or their music or whatever. They can pay actual talented people to do things for them. And so you're seeing a lot of YouTubers now who are really not very good at any kind of skills. They don't really have any talents. They're not really like able to do much of anything, but then they get to the top and they can start paying people to be their skill for them. And so like I've seen, like there's all these different drama channels, and like so the example I'm particularly thinking of is like this guy Ricegum, who I don't really know a whole lot about, except for the fact that, you know, once he rose to prominence, he started hiring a ghostwriter, and so he wasn't really a good rapper before, and now he is, because he's got someone who writes his own stuff, writes his stuff for him. And you know, you're not just seeing this with like rappers. You also see this with like Markiplier. And not to knock on him, he does his own stuff, and he seems like a likable guy. He's got a really good radio voice and everything like that. But like occasionally, you see him hire people with actual media production skills to produce high production videos for him because he's making so much money on this like cheap, fast stuff that he produces every single day. And, you can tell that he doesn't want to just be like, okay, I'm the vlog guy. He also wants his channel to have some, I don't know, like actual entertainment value. So occasionally he pays people to do kind of more interesting things that are more complex and more interesting. And this is getting to be kind of a weird environment. But the fact is, although these guys can hire people to make these high-end production things, there's still really not enough money, and there's not enough time to have that be the bulk of the content. Like Markiplier occasionally hires people to do like some cool animation stuff or whatever, but it's obviously not like the number one type of video he does, because every single day, you still got to get up and you still got to do your fast, cheap stuff. So there are things that work. We've got the toy unboxings and whatever, and that works with kids because, like, kids are kind of cute, and so parents will watch the kids for a while, open up their toy, and then be all excited. It's like, oh, it's fun. It's the thing that you don't see a lot, and if you saw a lot of it, you get tired of it and stop watching it. And the same thing goes, Let's Plays, like people will watch Let's Plays. Let's Plays have an advantage. YouTube is actually suppressing Let's Plays in their algorithm now, but Let's Plays had the advantage that another company created all the hype and excitement for you using their video game. And this is actually why Let's Plays completely dominated YouTube for a while to the point of becoming a problem, was because if you look at the whole fast, cheap, good formula, somebody had already put a lot of time into making the game good, and the Let's Play just kind of rode off of the success of the game. So if the game was really good, then your Let's Play would also be really good because the game was good. You're playing a game that's good, and people are watching you play a fun game. So the video is going to be a whole lot more fun than if you just, I don't know, did the Let's Play on a blank screen or whatever. The guys, like watching Aaron and whoever his co-host is on Game Grumps now. I haven't watched Game Grumps in so long. Whoever their co-host is now, watching him just shout hee-haw bitch at the camera for a half hour wouldn't do much for most people if you took away the exciting video games. And I think they did a Let's Play of Solitaire, and it just did really poorly. So kind of illustration of my point. The video game being exciting is part of how you get into the better side of the creative triangle, and it's important. But anyway, though, because Let's Plays were just dominating YouTube, YouTube has changed the algorithm to sort of squash that down. They really don't promote the gaming content like they used to, and so it's not dominating anymore. And apparently that's good for the site because as they were promoting gaming stuff out their ears, they were actually losing interest. It's hard to gauge for sure, but I've heard that they were just generally losing interest in YouTube. People were they were starting to plateau because people get sick of watching Let's Plays. They get sick of watching so many things. So anyway. So on this note, though, of what works on YouTube and so on and so forth, the thing about the Logan Paul deal, and some people are really flustered about it, but I'm personally not. Because the Logan Paul situation has been on YouTube for a long time. It's been just like the Elsa Spider-Man situation, where you're just kind of looking at this, and if you understand the nuts and bolts of YouTube, it makes perfect sense why Anna Elsa Spider-Man was a problem. You could tell, they were exploiting the algorithm. It was as simple as that. And the stuff with, Logan Paul and all these drama channels and all these just, really unpleasant personalities being at the top of YouTube, it's the same thing. Their drama is fast and cheap and easy to do. And if it wasn't Logan Paul that filmed a corpse, it was going to be someone else. Every single day, they're trying to film something new. They're trying to one-up themselves and get more viewers and get more notice. If they get in the news, then that helps their promotion. They're going to wind up being trending because the news is reporting stuff that they're doing. And then there's really no drawback to them getting in the news as long as they don't cross a line so far that their YouTube channel is deleted or something. Then fundamentally the promotion will offset any kind of drawbacks that they have, because YouTube's system, again, it's very artificial. It's really not picking up the best of the best. It's just looking for stuff that kind of suits itself. And so it doesn't really matter if these guys are being bad actors. Just like Elsa Spider-Man, which was worth probably millions of dollars as a racket, in spite of it all being terrible, the promotional system is worthwhile to you no matter how bad your stuff is. And so what I kind of want to talk about, what I haven't really talked about before, is kind of the theory behind the algorithm and why YouTube is so attached to it. The fact that they're super attached to it and think that they're going to revolutionize entertainment is part of why I think they're not a media company, they're a tech company. This is also why a lot of big companies like Frederator have walked away from the platform because this is completely asinine. But what the theory behind YouTube's strategy is they're looking at what's called emergent technology. And there's actually a segment about this on NPR if you're interested in learning more. It's kind of a neat segment. They talk more about Google's search engine, but this applies over to YouTube as well. Emergent technology is the idea that the parts of a system come together into a synergistic whole. A synergistic whole, in case I stumbled over that word there, it sounded like I did. A synergistic whole, it comes together in a synergistic whole that means more than just the sum of the parts. The most common example used of this is when people are given they put a jar of jelly beans out and they say like, all right, everybody in the room, guess how many beans are in this jar. And so everyone will put forward their guesses and you find that very few people are actually correct. But if you take the average of all the guesses in the room, then on average, you find out that people are correct about the number of jelly beans. They'll be astoundingly close. It doesn't just work with jelly beans. It also works like guess the weight of this cow, do this, do that. The first original experiment was essentially guess the weight of a cow. And they found that a large crowd was able to very accurately guess the weight of a cow, excuse me. So yes. Anyway, though, so on average, people are able to kind of have a sense of what's correct when they look at something. Like if you ask them all to kind of gauge how things are, then they can sort of figure it out. This is part of where the idea of the invisible hand in the market comes from. In an ideal world where everyone is able to freely choose what they want to purchase, people will generally gravitate towards the best possible situation. The markets don't actually work like this because you have different businesses. There's, oligopolies, monopolies, all kinds of different systems that, they're maybe not competitive, and so they don't really give people choices. But in a perfect, ideal economic system, you would have this invisible hand because people, as a synergistic unit, are able to make pretty good decisions. There will be people who are really wrong and people who are maybe really correct, but on average, everyone will be sort of looking for the right stuff. So with YouTube, the idea is that by looking at the kind of content that everyone is viewing and figuring out what's doing the best, YouTube will be able to find the best entertainment through an emergent system similar to this. They can figure out like what do people want to watch and on average, everyone will kind of know what the best sorts of videos are. The problem with this is originally this was probably closer to being accurate. This was probably closer to being a good emergent system back when they did things based on views. It wasn't perfect, obviously. They had to change it. But when it was based on views alone, you got to see, like, well, what were people clicking on and what were people watching a lot of? Like, what was just gathering a lot of eyeballs? And you got a lot of really kind of interesting content. Lots of different people trying to do different things, focusing on media ideas that made sense. On average, artists assumed that, like, song and dance and animation and filmography, special effects, all these kind of, like, production-based things were going to attract the most people. And for the most part, in those early days, they were correct. If you were doing something that was high production, high skill, or really funny, required a script and a lot of time to make, you could do pretty well on YouTube. Because you would draw in a lot of people, you would get a lot of viewers, that was essentially a lot of traffic that was coming to your channel and saying, yeah, this is great. And so it was a good way for really skilled channels to grow. But the problem is that in any system like this, when people become aware of a rule, what they do with the jelly bean equation or whatever, what they do with the jelly bean thing, is they say like, all right, the closer you guess to the jelly beans, the more likely you are to win a prize. And the way that this works is that some people are trying to guess the number of jelly beans because they want to be right about the number of jelly beans, and some people are just trying to win a prize. And so if you have an artificial system, like let's suppose you don't actually know how many beans are in the jar, and you just sort of have an algorithmic guess or whatever, then what people could do is if they can figure out the pattern of like who's winning prizes, then they know what your algorithm is sort of favoring. And if they can then start to guess what the algorithm is favoring, and they can then skew the algorithm off course, because if the algorithm is a little bit wrong, then, you get these cheaters who come in and they sort of guess with the algorithm, confirming its incorrect nature, and it'll just sort of drift it. It'll pull it over kind of into a wrong perspective. And so you had this thing, this reply girls thing that came up. This is the big famous thing that everybody says had to be stopped on YouTube. Basically, they were girls who would reply to videos, popular videos, and say, wow, I just watched this video, and they had large boobs, so they would get a lot of kids that would click on the thumbnail because they'd be like, oh, I want to look at boobs, So one of these things, it turns out that people on the whole rather like boobs. On average, you'll find that a lot of people want to click and look at boobs. So these girls had figured out a way to sort of exploit the system, the way that the promotional algorithm worked. And so YouTube came in, and they said, well, clearly, we can't just rely on an emergent system to arise if people start to game the system. So maybe let's find another way to figure out whether or not people enjoy the content. And what they switched over to then was watch time. And this is where all the high production entertainment died. This is pretty much where everything started to turn around on YouTube. And it didn't happen completely overnight because you still had plenty of channels that were big enough and still had viewers and whatnot. Back in the day, all your subscribers might still be notified about stuff that you were doing. So it wasn't just like completely destructive to continue doing high production content. It's just that everything sort of switched over to this faster sort of like Let's Play type of thing. And that dominated for a little while. So, yes, watch time, they decided, was what was going to be the thing, because the amount of time that people spent watching a video was more important than the number of people that clicked it. Because, like you would click on the video of boobs and then realize you were not going to see any nipples, and then you'd move on because you were bored. So the Reply Girls died because, they weren't really able to retain anyone's viewership because, what they were? Fundamentally, they were vloggers. This is they were reaction channels. They were just reacting to other people's videos, and everyone hated this. No one wanted to see more of it. So, yeah, thank God we got away from that. we did for a little while, but it turned out that what this did is this led to just the production, the proliferation of a lot of really cheap, kind of low-quality content. And that was the thing that then dominated the website, which created a problem. It slowed down YouTube's momentum, so they suppressed Let's Plays, and this kind of helped pick them up a little bit. But it still really limited the kind of content that can do well on YouTube, and has for a long time. So this emergent system, it's still kind of in theory would have worked. I mean, it didn't understand. It was made without an understanding of how media is produced, or the basics of it, and that was kind of the biggest problem with it. Like, they weren't necessarily wrong. Like I say, Let's Plays were probably among the best types of content they could have hoped for in a system that favored watch time. Just because they were exploiting something else that took a long time to be good, but a website that was only Let's Plays was not going to last forever. So they did have to get away from that. But the problem is that as they went along and they realized that watch time was helping, I think that maybe they started to notice the pattern that high watch time and high posting frequency together was producing a lot of ad revenue. Because high watch time allowed you to run more ads, and then if you could post more video more frequently, then you could run even more ads. So if you posted, 10 videos a week, and each one ran 2 ads, that was like 20 ads, versus other channels that were posting, 5 times a week, and, running 1 ad, that was 5 ads. It's not nearly as good, not nearly as profitable for YouTube. So they also started to favor posting time. And so this is, at this point, they've kind of bastardized the ideal of an emergent system. They're no longer even really trying to figure out how many jelly beans are in a jar. What's going on now is I compare it to the idea of like, well, suppose that you ask everyone to guess how many jelly beans are in a jar, but you set the algorithm, which doesn't know how many jelly beans are in the jar, to only accept and reward guesses that are 3 digits long. Now, there might be, 65 jelly beans in the jar, and, the people who guess 65 jelly beans, they expect to be rewarded, but they aren't. But people who are guessing, like outlandish numbers, like 120 jelly beans, 100 jelly beans, 110 jelly beans, like all these things, these people are getting rewards. And now you get back to this problem where, again, the point for a lot of people is not to be correct about the number of jelly beans. The point is to win a prize. So people start doing things that they see the algorithm is rewarding. They're trying to win the prize, which in this case is viewership and ad revenue. And so they start doing this content like unboxing videos and vlogs and stuff like that. Things that they know are really not that interesting, that are really not all that fun, that are really not very talented. But they know it'll get promoted and it will get them views. And the problem with this is I'm starting to see now where people go on like forums and things like that, and they're saying, for a little while, I had this video and it was doing amazing, and then 1 month comes up, and suddenly they're going from like 100,000 views a month to like nothing, like 0 views. And you know what it is? It's because they were doing something that was popular in the algorithm, and then the algorithm changed to not favor that kind of content anymore, and they were just like zeroed in on whatever it was that YouTube wanted to suppress. Now they're making nothing. It's like there was no entertainment value in their video at all. It was all artificial. It was all based on what YouTube was promoting. And when YouTube changes what it was promoting, everything dies. There's no sustainability there. So, it's really weird and it's really strange. And the fact that people have to adjust to this on the fly and just keep going kind of creates this incentive to always do something that has a certain amount of survivability to it. It's also cheap and it's fast. And, you can do it every day. Again, like I say, drama, just really nasty, toxic content is probably one of the best ways to do this on YouTube right now. So Logan Paul is one example of somebody who's really popular from doing this, but there's so many other examples. I don't keep really close tabs on many of them because most of their content just kind of ruins my day if I watch it. Like, it really doesn't make me feel good to watch. Even I've seen iDubbbz does his content cop thing, and I've watched some of his content cop videos, and even though it's kind of funny, and he feels like he's pretty much in the right when he calls these people out, it still just kind of makes me feel a little bit worse at the end of the day. Like, I walk away from that content thinking, I'm less happy, than I was. I watched this video and I'm not in a better state of mind than before I came in. So, this is kind of like what works on YouTube right now. It's going to continue to be what works. YouTube can try to make changes, and they can, make little tweaks and suppress this content and suppress that content. But as long as they're focused on just making stuff that is fast and cheap and, just kind of broadly impractical from a media standpoint, they're going to continue to have these problems. They're going to keep seeing people pushing the envelope and doing things that are really unacceptable. And YouTube's not going to have a way to prevent it because there's no systematic way for them to predict what kind of irrational crap people are going to do. And everyone is specifically cooperating with the algorithm. This is the problem. Everyone is specifically cooperating with the algorithm that they have. So, even the algorithm's not really preventing it. The algorithm is promoting it. The algorithm is part of the problem. So what YouTube is going to do in the future, I don't know. I've talked on, apparently Reddit, you can actually run into some of the Google employees. I've had the opportunity to talk to a couple of people who are affiliated with Google or whatever. And it feels like they have so much confidence in themselves as a tech industry. They have so much confidence that they're revolutionizing entertainment. And they're really just not. It's more that they just don't understand it. And hearing some weird stuff from back there. I'm not actually sure what is going on. I gotta go check it out. But anyway, yes. So that's kind of it. That's what I think. Like Logan Paul, we're gonna see more crap in the future that's similar to this. We're gonna see more advertiser blowouts. Just it's still on the website. It's still being produced. It's still some of the most profitable content that there is. And who knows how it's going to be in the future. But this is what YouTube wants. This is the empire that they've built. They're probably not happy about it, but they've been striving to create this for a long time now, and it feels like they're very proud of it. So I honestly don't anticipate that they're going to get things fixed at all. They're probably going to have to change their leadership or something like that to people who understand how media is made before we see any changes. And I don't blame the companies that have walked away from them. Stuff like Frederator, people like Frederator and some other things. Like Jim Henson's The Muppets was occasionally doing shorts for YouTube early on, back when that kind of stuff would get promoted efficiently. I think they may still, but you don't see it as much as you did back when they first started doing it. But until someone who understands media as an investment gets in charge of YouTube, I really don't think that we're going to see anything turn around. We're not really going to see good media on the website. We're going to continue to see this sort of like technology-based approach to everything, where it's just sort of like, if we tech hard enough, it'll fix everything, and it just won't. It just won't. So, yeah, I don't know. I suppose that's it for today. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.